So the concept about it is that a self-evident proposition is a proposition which cannot be false because there's no alternative to it. It exhausts all the possibilities by virtue of its mere existence. So what I mean by this is that potential exists. Let's say I state the statement that potential exists. The mere fact that the actual statement took place means it's in actuality, it presupposes the reality of the potential. So the statement potential exists cannot be wrong. So God is one of those types of statements. So does God exist? Yeah, God of course exists. This is one of the reasons why I find atheism to be so incoherent. It seems like they don't think about it seems like they haven't even thought about the question at all.
Well, it's weird to say that potential exists. Like, in what sense does potential exist? Because isn't potential by definition something unactualized?
Right, but that's just a category error. To exist in logic means to instantiate identity in some definable realm. So, or some set of parameters, or some phase space, or some type of concept space.
So are you just when you say it exists, you just mean that it has some sort of identity?
If anything that has identity exists, anything.
Okay, so then, but under that theory of existence, you're just gonna say that unicorns exist.
Right, but it depends on what domain they exist. They exist in the world of the mind. So in my philosophy, I deny the existence of the external. I deny the existence of a material world external from the mind. I think that consciousness is primary, consciousness is fundamental, and consciousness is ultimate. So when we're starting to, so in apocalyptic mythorealism, which is a philosophy that I've created, it's important to be able to delineate which domain you're actually referring to when you're instantiating identity. So a unicorn wouldn't exist in the domain of the you real. A unicorn would exist more along the lines of in the domain of either the quasi-real or in the domain of the anti-real, but it wouldn't exist in the domain of the you real, which is the world that you're in right now. But the mere fact that you have when you're dealing with when you're dealing with facts, let's just say I state a fact. Let's say I state that 1 + 1 is 2. If I'm saying 1 + 1 is 2, that's a meaningful statement because the statement itself points at something that substantiates the statement. It's a sign that signifies something. Now, if I say 1 + 1 is 3, that's wrong. How do we know that? Well, if it's going to be wrong, it has to point to something that's not in the realm of the true. It has to point to something that's in the realm of the false. But that would require the existence of an imaginary domain that contains things that don't exist in the other domain. But if they exist in the imaginary domain, then they have some type of existence. So their identity gets instantiated. So that would be in an anti-real domain. So the mere fact that you're able to say 1 + 1 is 2 implies the existence of 1 + 1 = 3 in an anti-real domain.
I guess I'll ask you about the potential thing. So I guess what was the purpose of you saying like potential exists in the sense that it has an identity? Like, what are you trying to say with that?
Well, is potential different from the actual?
Well, yeah, it's a distinction.
Right. So the distinction is precisely what gives it existence.
But
identity is distinct from that which is from that which is it is disjunct.
Well, to be clear, there's a distinction in like conceptually, because potential is just purely conceptual.
Potential. Well, if potential is purely conceptual, where do all concepts come from?
The mind.
Right. So then the mind itself would actually have to be the subground of it. Would actually have to be the substance of potentiality itself, and therefore all concepts reference mind itself, and mind is actually